Great. You're like, get a leave behind. Look, I got a leave behind for you. I'm like on the IRA homework list. Awesome. There you go.
Can I put that in just a minute?
I'm on see it, so I'm not.
That's what I do.
Yeah, nice
I
shot.
take all
Yeah,
of this.
you have to play. Sorry, I give you a nice tip-top shot.
All right, great.
Welcome everyone to our Immigrants List Civic Action Panel, Political Landscape for Immigration. My name is Glenn Morgan. I'll be your day coordinator for this session. A couple of quick announcements. If there's time for Q&A, you can enter them in the AILA Conferences app. If you need to enter or exit the room, please do so quietly, and we'll read the CLE code at the conclusion of the session. I'd like to introduce Denise Sabah, the discussion leader for the session. Take it away.
Thank you. Hello, welcome everybody. Well, the past 10 days, we in the country witnessed LA, Marines deployed, arrests of seamstresses, and a senator, chaotic Trump administration policy reversals on mass deportation, raids or not as multiple industries flex their power, litigation on multiple fronts with injunctions issued, overturned, appealed, with most still unresolved for months or longer. I could go on describing just the past 10 days. It's been 149 days since Trump regained power. The key questions for the country regarding immigration policy, the practices in power that determine realities on the ground for families, communities, workplaces, the economy and culture are many and complex, ever-changing and dynamic. The consequences are profound, for better or worse. Well, we have a great panel today to discuss how we try to deal with these issues. We're excited to be joined today by Angie Kelly, Chief Advisor at the American Immigration Lawyers Association, Jeremy Robbins, the Executive Director from the American Immigration Council, Ira Kurzban, Immigrants List Civic Action, who really needs no introduction, and Ben Johnson from the American Immigration Lawyers Association, John Miyasato, the founder of Crossroads Consulting. We'll examine the urgent challenges facing immigration policy today. Our discussion will include a deep dive into recent public opinion polling and the real and lasting implications of those shifting views that are ever shifting. We'll explore American Immigration Council's latest data, and they have incredible data. If you're not familiar with AIC's data, go on the website, take a look at it. It's awesome. On real-time policy threats, and examine the benefits of immigration at the state level and how they can inform better policy. We'll also explore the critical role of advocacy, and advocacy is the key here. It's not just sitting in your office and practicing law, and also dealing with everything we have to deal with and on a daily basis, but it is getting out there and getting your friends and your family and your communities and the business clients you represent and everybody involved. So we'll discuss that role and the litigation in defending immigrants' rights with real-world examples of how legal and grassroots efforts are making an impact. Finally, we'll close by looking ahead to the 2026 midterm elections, discussing strategic steps we can take to build a more just and humane immigration system. So with that, let's start out with Angie and Ben. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise. Why don't I kick us off and then see what Ben wants to add. Okay, so I've been given about 5 minutes to talk about public opinion research, and it will probably change by the time we leave this room. So here's what you need to know is that public opinion is captured by polling. It's a snapshot. It's not a movie. It's just a moment in time, and it's usually not a complete picture, right? So I'm going to give you fewer numbers, but more just trends and what we're seeing. And then I think some helpful messages that we can all begin adopting that will, I hope, move public opinion in the right direction. So as many of you know, there is growing disapproval of Trump's immigration policies. That's a good thing. I'm going to just mention a few, but there's some important caveats. So there's growing disapproval for deporting people to third countries. There's disapproval for allowing law enforcement, I don't know what to do here, to just stop and detain anybody who looks undocumented, revoking visas of people who are here legally, and people don't like the idea of US citizens being sent to prisons in foreign land. So little tiny cracks that we're starting to see of the public not approving of what Trump is doing. And what's really beginning to change is as people see, it's not just the policy on paper, but how it's being implemented. So there is support for the notion of removing people who are here unlawfully. But when they start to see that the people who they're going after are not the criminals that they said they would go after. In fact, there's been a 900% increase over 1 year in terms of holding, detaining non-criminals from a year ago. So we're really seeing very much that he has broken his promise of who he was going to go after, and that begins to make the public uncomfortable. Important caveats, though, are one, that just because they disapprove of what he's doing doesn't mean that they would approve of doing nothing, right? The public very much wants there to be solutions, right? And immigration has been the issue where Trump has done the best. He continues to do the best. So even if we see an overall softening of the public support for Trump on immigration, he's still doing better than on any other issue. So the trust gap is the greatest between Trump, Republicans, and the Democrats. That's a second thing to keep in mind, is that there is a deep, deep deficit that the Democrats have in terms of credibility on immigration. It's because they're being seen as either saying nothing or only saying no. And what they need to say is, no, don't do this, but do that, and to offer a solution. And again, that's where we're beginning to see some Democrats beginning to come forward. And that's where, in fact, we need to support and echo some of their messages. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. The third thing to keep in mind is that opinion is volatile. So in the same day or within 24 hours, CBS and I think it was either ABC or NPR came out with polls, one showing a majority approving of his immigration policies and the other showing a majority disapproving of his policies within a 24-hour period. So the public is sort of all over the place, and that gives us an opportunity. And the opportunity is based on two things. One is circumstance. What is it that Trump is going to continue to do? How far will he go? And how much can we shine a spotlight on it? The second is about narrative. And this is where actually we become highly relevant. You in particular, who have clients, can tell a different story about what not only is happening, but what can happen. And that's what the public is hungry for. Here are a couple things that we can focus on that will begin to move the dial. You can say canary in the coal mine, tip of the spear, slippery slope, any of those kinds of phrases that begin to open people's eyes to their worry that what they're doing to immigrants, they will do to all of us or to any of us. So the idea that they ignore the rule of law, we're seeing that happen. That they arrest US citizens, that's happening too. They ignore what the courts say. That could be me next. And once the public begins to see themselves in what Trump is doing, then they worry, then they take action. That's what you saw, frankly, in Los Angeles and in many other cities. The second is that the government's making mistakes. They're moving too fast, they're reckless, and again, they could come for me. So whether it's a Democrat or Republican or an independent, they don't want the government to make mistakes, and they're making a lot of them. The third has to do with Ben's very favorite phrase, due process. It actually matters, right? We've heard that over and over again in the last few days. So the fact that they're denying due process, that they're pulling these tricks in court, that immigrants aren't getting a chance to talk to their lawyers, that they're being presumed guilty, even as it applies to the immigrant themselves, that makes the American public uncomfortable. Those are points worth pointing out, and they're ones that you experience every day. The fourth, and maybe the most important message, is to offer solutions. There is enduring support for the undocumented who have been here for a long time, who have ties to this country, who have US citizen children, who work hard in industries where we desperately need them. When you paint that picture, when you tell that story of those undocumented, you always get at least 65%, even when Trump is polling his highest, support for a path to citizenship, for legal status for those people. But you gotta say all that other stuff. Because if we just talk about removing people, people are like, okay, well, that sounds like we're doing something. But once you paint the picture of who they are, that they're deeply rooted, the public doesn't want that. They do want control, though. So whatever you say, you have to marry control and compassion. And then the American public will start to listen, and hopefully we'll get out of this nightmare. Anyway, thanks very much, Denise. That's all I got for now.
Yeah.
Ben, anything you want to add?
Yeah.
I used up most of my words at the plenary, so I don't have a lot left. I want to reinforce what Angie has said and make it a little bit more pointed to this audience is, yes, we have an opportunity here because support for Donald Trump's immigration policies is declining, but it's still at 49%. I mean, 49% of the public is okay with what's happening, right? So we got a lot of work to do. And I think Angie is right. A lot of that work is about reestablishing some credibility as advocates. So one of the first things I want to say is that you got to be out there talking about these issues. But when you're talking about these issues, you got to know your audience. There is a time and a place to rally the troops, to say, this is crazy. This is, all of the things that we want to be able to say that are instinctively the things that we say. But if you're talking to the 49%, you got to go into that conversation aware of how much ground we have to make up with the public. So to Angie's point, they're okay with this because of the chaos that they saw for so long and that was manipulated and, by Donald Trump through his, that really 8 years of campaigning to be for the election, the demonizing and the vilifying and all of that. So we have to have a response to the chaos. And Angie, I think, made that point. We need to have solutions. We need to be able to say that our goal is to have a process that makes sense and works, right? So that's what I would say is reestablish your credibility and be willing to acknowledge problems that exist in the system. And in this environment, that's very difficult because some really horrible people have the microphone. Stephen Miller, horrible person, has the microphone. But even a horrible person every now and again is proposing a horrible solution to a real problem. And we have to be able to acknowledge some real problems. And then to Angie's point, provide alternative, humane, sensible solutions that will get us the order, that will remove the chaos that the public is sick of. And right now, one of the reasons they are opposed to these policies is not so much, unfortunately, that they care about the people that this is happening to, but this just feels to them like another form of chaos, right? And so we've replaced one form of chaos at the southern border with another form of chaos that's rolling itself all over the country. This is our opportunity to say, we have a solution that will remove the chaos in both scenarios. So talk about be credible advocates, understand your audience, and talk about solutions. And who you should be talking to them or who you should be talking to more than we have is what Jeremy is going to talk about. We got to talk to people that are in that 49%. We got to talk to people that we disagree with, and we got to know how to talk to them. And we got to do the hard work of galvanizing some of the audiences that the Immigration Council has been working with at the local level. So I'll stop there. And
Yeah. So, Jeremy, I think this is a good segue for you.
Sure. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Ben and Angie. I mean, I couldn't agree more with what the message needs to be. So I get to talk to you about how we get it out there and how we fight. The American Immigration Council was founded 40 years ago to be AILA's nonprofit. And that doesn't just mean that we are fighting for you, though we are doing that in a real sense. It means that we're equipping you to fight, and we're fighting together. The threats right now are so real on so many fronts, and I'm telling you stuff you already know, but if you look at it, they're now talking about arresting lawyers, right? They're talking about weaponizing the terrorism statutes to go after lawyers and our clients. They've gutted every single oversight organization, so you can't even know what they're doing, right? For the nonprofits that are helping, they're talking about targeting and going after their C3 status. They've cut funding, so more people are going into court without lawyers. And right now, though they haven't been able to achieve the numbers that they want, Congress is about to pump hundreds of billions of dollars into the most aggressive enforcement regime we've ever seen in this country. And that should scare you, right? And it's a time when we need to fight more than ever. When you look around, most of our allies have run away in fear. People are worried that the Trump administration is coming after them. They're censoring before they even get there. And that makes our job harder. It makes our job more important. It means we need to fight. So I'm going to get to talk to you a little bit about how you do that and what we're doing and what we're going to do together. And I'll come around to what Ben wants, where Ben was going about sort of the business and the local work. But I'm going to start with suing. We at the council and AILA together are suing the pants off the government. I am hugely proud of it. We're suing to stop people from going to the gulag. We are suing to stop the complete closure of asylum at our ports of entry. We're suing under transparency to find out what the hell they are doing so that we know what the levers are to stop it. We're suing opportunistic governors like DeSantis in Florida, like Reynolds in Iowa. We're looking in state after state after state, and we're fighting, but we're not going to win unless we're all fighting. If you don't think of yourself as a litigator, you need to start thinking of yourself as a litigator, because for each one of you, you need to do that. And we will help you at the council and at AILA. One of the things that I'm hoping each of you will take away, we have a giveaway sheet with lots of QR codes for all of the different ways that we can support you. So if you don't think of yourself as a litigator, but you need to sue, we will show you how to get into federal court. We will show you how to challenge denials that are completely unjust. We will show you how to unpack really difficult issues of law that are coming. Our lawyers will work with you, but we need to be less passive and more active. And so those are the ways that we need to work together, because we are winning. You look at the lawsuits, there have been more successful lawsuits against the Trump administration, and they're ignoring it, right? They can't ignore forever, and we need to put the pressure on to do that. We also want to arm you to fight. You don't need to look further than this week to look at the power that the folks in this room and your clients can have. The president all of a sudden 180 on enforcement, being like, all of a sudden, we're not going to go after hospitality and we're not going to go after farms. That was because some of his business buddies called him. That's because people who matter made that case. 4 days later, they walked it back. That tells you that there's going to be a huge MAGA pushback, and we need to push back forward. The strength of AILA, which is tremendous, is that there are 17,000 of us who are in every single community in the country where we are the experts, and we know our clients are the ones with political power, and we need to be able to leverage that. And we will help you do that. We're going to do it with facts, and we're going to do it with opportunities to engage. So take the travel ban. Travel ban just came in. You are going to be the most, you are going to be the most powerful advocates for the impact the travel ban is going to happen. So if you go on our website and you look at the data we're going to give you, you look at there are 19 countries that are implicated. There are 475 million people for those countries. A lot of them come here and have a hugely positive impact on our communities. We treat them as if we're terrorists and we need to close our borders. But if you look back in 2023, there were 34,000 immigrant visas and 126,000 non-immigrant visas in 1 year that went to those countries. Closing that off turns away more than 160,000 people who are going to come here and contribute. You look at heads of households in this country who come from those 19 countries, they make $3.2 billion a year. They pay $700 million in taxes. They have $2.5 billion in spending power to inject into our economy. We want this to be how you talk about it. We want you to take it when you are talking to members of Congress, talking about why this hurts their community, because the pocketbook obviously does matter, right? When Donald Trump's allies say that, look, our farms and our hospitality can't handle it, that's the pushback. And so we need more, and we need more of that. At the end of the day, this is going to start locally. If you look at where the powers and come from, it's when members of Congress go home and they hear from their local businesses and others. At the council, we're now working in nearly 40 states starting at the hyper local level to show people how you help immigrants succeed when we're there, to work with mayors, to work with business leaders. We advise governors. We are almost certainly in your state. Even if we're not, our data is there for you to advocate. If you go to maptheimpact.org or just click your handy QR code on the takeaway, You can look up in your county, in your city, in your state, in your congressional district. How many immigrants are there? How much are they paying in taxes? How many businesses they started? We're trying to give folks the language to use to push back and have a different narrative. It's a hugely powerful group of people. There are 2,800 people at this conference, or another 1,000 people online, all of whom have clients who have networks who in their community, who are distributed all over the country. And they are the person in every single community who people look to understand this issue. We hired our first chief marketing officer last year to figure out how do we get better at getting our message out, because we clearly have a messaging problem that I think Angie hit on the head. We now have 1 million people, 1 million visits to our website every single month. And you know what people are coming for? They're coming to understand, what is birthright citizenship? Like, do immigrants pay taxes? Like, do they commit crimes? They are trying to understand our best piece of content in the history of our organization, which has been read millions and millions of times. It's literally our 101 on how the immigration system works. People do not understand this issue, and there's a hunger to understand it. And you are the experts who are gonna show them how to do it. And it's really easy to feel frustrated because you don't know how to engage. Please use the resources, please engage locally. One other easy way to do it is if you sign up at our immigration justice campaign, we will send you ways to engage on a regular basis. This is happening, here's what you can do. So all to say is of all the times to be complacent, the folks around us are running away, we need to start running towards. So grateful for all of you and looking forward to being in this fight together.
Thank you, Jeremy. Well, you can see that AIC has a lot of resources, and there's a lot of help here to help everybody get involved in whatever way you can. And for you all who are doing a lot of the deport work or have business clients, you can raise up this issue, raise the issue up, write some op-eds, tell the stories, because that's really what's very helpful here. And the businesses finally are starting to wake up. They're starting to talk about things. They're starting to push back, and so for you all that represent some big businesses, go and meet the CEOs, talk to them about what you can do to help them. So let's go on to our next part, which is advocacy and fighting back. And John, you were going to talk about the Plyler Doe. Are you talking about that case?
Yeah.
Are you going to talk about that, Ira?
Okay. I'm just.
What's your name again?
Hi, I'm Mr. Kurzman. I work for Ben Johnson. I actually wanted to talk about 4 things that I think immigration lawyers should be doing and doing it now. The first is, I think we need to establish a program of filing federal torts claim actions against ICE officials and CBP officials, and I'll tell you why. Most of them don't want to be doing what they're doing. Most of them are very upset at working 6.5 days a week. Most of the higher up officials, many of them have quit. They are being pushed by millions to deliver 3,000 people a day, which is not realistic and ultimately won't happen. I don't even care if they get the $40 billion or not. And so when this happens and they bring in FBI agents are working on deportation, HSI agents are working on deportation, the DEA agents, LFT agents are working. None of them want to do this. And I think it's important to understand when you get in that situation, people start to make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, they're subject to the Federal Tort Claims Act for false arrest, for false imprisonment, for a whole series of other things. My view is that we should be filing thousands and thousands of Federal Tort Claims Act petitions. You have 2 years to file them from the date the incident happens, and then you have 6 months to sue. The agents hate this. They don't like being sued. They don't like being singled out. And this is a way of trying to create kind of a counter effect to what Miller is trying to do. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I believe that mass deportation should be met by mass manifestations or mass demonstrations in the US. And one of the things that's happening right now in Miami, for example, you know, they're taking away TPS from Haitians, they're taking away TPS from Venezuelans. They are taking away, as you know, parole from Cubans and Nicaraguans, Venezuelans, and Haitians. That's 1.5 million people. And I have spent a good deal of time in the last couple of weeks, and there's going to be a meeting this weekend of leaders of those organizations getting together, because my view is if there's 1.5 million people being deported, you can get 50,000 people out on the street. And if you get 50,000 people out on the street every single day in a place like Miami, I don't care what Trump says and I don't care what Miller says, people are going to pay attention to it. And, you know, we went through this in the 1970s when it was just as hostile to Haitians, and we had people out on the street every single day, because it does two things. One is it says we're strong and we're not going to take this crap. But the other thing it says is we're human beings, and this is our story, and this is what's going on in our community, and you need to know about it. So I think mass deportation needs to be met by mass demonstrations. The third thing is, and this is because Ben would kick me off the panel if I didn't say it, is that the midterms are coming up, and John would too, I guess. The midterms are coming up. You need to get involved in the elections. This is obviously the most defining election of our lives, because if the Democrats don't take back the House and hopefully the Senate, we're going to be in a whirlwind of trouble. And we've started out an immigrants list. Tonight, we're going to have an event from Mo Goldman, who's running for the House. Any of you should think about running, or think about people you know who can run in districts. We need to have immigration lawyers out there fighting, making the point, or supporting people who are truly pro-immigration. And one of the things I learned from the Lake and Riley bill is that it's often difficult to tell who's pro-immigration and who isn't. But this is not a time to back down. This is a time to be in their face and fight about it. So anything you can do on that. And then the last point is, I want to talk about social media and information. And this is where I think the American Immigration Lawyers Association and AIC play an incredible role that we as immigration lawyers often don't take advantage of. There is a wealth of information that AIC has that the American public have no idea about. There's a wealth of information out there. For example, last week, the Cato Institute, which I think AILA put on, AILA 8 or something, I don't know. But the Cato Institute, which is a conservative organization, but not anti-immigrant, said that the president's plan will cost $1 trillion. That's their estimate. And they're pretty good, and they're pretty smart about their politics and about information. And, you know, my view is Americans have no idea about that. You talk to them and say, do we really want to spend $1 trillion when we need health care in America, when we need early childhood education, where we need better schools in America? And who are we deporting? And all the Republicans can say is to talk about the border. And I tell them the border's been closed since July 2024, because Joe Biden closed the border in July of 2024. So what is this nonsense about the border? They keep talking about the border, the border, the border, but there's nothing to close at the border. In December of 2024, 38 Haitians came across the border and were apprehended. In January, 19 came across. In February, 8 came across. So when they talk about numbers and stuff, the American people have no idea about what's really going on, because Trump is a genius of creating his own reality and pushing it on the American people. And AIC is this incredible source of information as to what's really going on locally and nationally. And I think you can use that in social media. And I'm the perfect example, because I'm on TikTok. Okay? So if I'm on TikTok, anybody here could be on TikTok. I don't even have a TikTok account. I don't even know how to get on it. Okay? Somebody in my office said, we'll film you and we'll put it on. And so You know, and every week I'm doing 2, 3, 4 things, talking about facts about immigrants. $92 billion that were paid by immigrants in 2022, undocumented immigrants, which is all going to disappear because they keep talking about how we have to cut 280,000 jobs from Americans, but we're going to take away $92 billion that could be revenue in the United States. Those are the kind of facts that Americans have no idea of. You need to go on social media. You need to do it right away, and you need to start rebutting all this stuff. And AILA every day, right? Every day lists what you can do in terms of social media. So I think those are the 4 things right now that all of us should be doing. And now I won't say anything else.
Can I
Yeah,
reinforce
yeah.
the idea of running for office and getting politically, or potentially running for office and being politically engaged? Corey, when is this standing committee on political engagement a panel? Friday at 4 o'clock. AILA has a standing committee on political engagement. If you're interested in figuring out how to be politically engaged, please go there. Mo Goldman, stand up. Mo Goldman, raise your hand. Mo Goldman's put his head out, put his neck out on the line, and he's running for office. More of us need to do that. Sorry.
No. Well, so, and if you can't go to the reception for Mo tonight, make sure you donate to Mo, because that's what's gonna get him elected, besides being the most incredible person that he is. So I want to get a commitment from everybody in here. They're gonna donate to Mo. Okay. All right, let's go. John, where are we going on this midterm?
Got a couple things. Okay, so happy Juneteenth, everyone. And I just want to say thanks to all of you out there who support the communities that you support and who have supported Immigrants List and in the past for all the work that you do every day, because I know how hard it is, especially in the times that we're in right now. So I've got 2 parts to this that I'm going to do real quick, which is the first is what happened in 24 and what's at stake in 25, 26. So it's really the kind of factual political stuff. And then the next part is to kind of reiterate some of the things that people have said about what you can do and to talk about some rays of hope and light that I think are out there. So real quick, super close election. People think it was a lot closer than people think it was. Definitely a lot closer than he who shall not be named says it was, right? And it was a combination of a couple things: Democratic turnout and voters turning and away from Biden, voters who turned away and voted for Trump. There were a lot of young voters that we started to lose. There were men, so thank you, women, and even voters of color who started swinging away from Democratic votes. The other thing that's really important in this is that 2 things. Sorry, one is that low information voters, people who only get their information from social media, people who don't read a book, like the numbers are dramatic. If you don't read at least 1 book a year, the numbers are double digits lower that you would not vote for, that you didn't vote for Kamala, that you voted for Trump. If you read at least 1 book a year, the numbers are astronomically higher, right? And because you're all lawyers, I know how many books you all read, right? And so people are right. You got to keep talking to people and educating them and informing them and teaching them, because they're not getting their information from the right places. And the more, as the other side says, the more that they say it, the more it just becomes true, even if it's not reality. Votes were a lot closer than people thought they were. The way that we lost the House of Representatives was a lot closer than we thought it was. And so that gives me a lot of hope for 2025 and 2026. In terms of what's at, so in terms of voter turnout, same thing, which is we saw uninformed voters move away, and we saw people who were least politically engaged. So it also talks about why you, as you talk to your clients, as you talk to your neighbors, as you talk to your friends, again, you don't have to be hyper partisan with them. You just need to make sure that they're really learning and trying to, and exposing them to real information. We're sorry, I'm getting. And so this is just some of the data that's been shown on that. 25 and 26, people like are assuming that it's not until 28 that things are going to happen again, but it's so not true. There are a number of things happening this year. There are a number, 2026 is all on the line. We're talking not just about congressional races. We're talking about gubernatorial races. And based on the way things are going, we know how important governors are now. We know how important state legislatures are now. We know how important state Supreme Court justices are. We know how important local Court of Appeals justices are.
Secretaries of State.
Secretaries of State. There is so much to kick the crap out of them with going into next year that it should almost be like we get more excited and motivated by how badly we can beat them. Okay? Rather than only feeling downtrodden. And we have data on every race in the country. So if any of you need anything, I think our emails are in there. So we're happy to send you anything you could want. So it just tells you about where the races are and how tight they are. What are the swing races? And we have, real quick, we have these breakdowns for every single state. So if you want your state, I only am showing you Arizona because Lord knows we don't need to show all that. But just let us know and we'll do it for you. And that's really easy. So having said the more factual stuff about what's been happening, I want to just say a couple things, which is I'm going to talk in a very partisan way about the topic of immigration, not about parting, but about immigration. I'm assuming, and maybe I don't need to do this, if you believe that immigrants contribute to ag, can you raise your hand?
Contribute to what?
Agriculture, our agricultural economy. What about healthcare? Construction? Education? Service industries? Technology? Life sciences, right? So this is the coolest thing about this room and people who are online right now, which is that you all agree. And that's your power. Okay? It's really simple. It is not about what the other side is putting out every day. It's not about the other side trying to bully us into being compliant. It's about the power that you have together. And that is astounding. And the other side, all they want to do is dampen our enthusiasm, dampen our belief system, diminish our belief system, destroy our belief system. That's it, bottom line. Because if they can beat us in that way, it doesn't matter what we do. They want to change a belief system. And we can't let them. It's just that simple. And I don't think we want to let them. I don't think the majority of Americans want to let them. I think a vast majority of Americans are like, F you. You know? And so while our current environment seems a little bleak, I just want to say a couple things that for me are very hopeful. Number one is that if you look at the numbers, millions of Americans participated last weekend. Millions. In Boise, Idaho, there were 15,000 people on the streets. I mean, that is unbelievable. Right? And this stupid parade that happened got a few thousand and they didn't even march well. Right? But millions came out saying this is not the way it's supposed to be here. And that's power. Right? In a smaller way, just like Jeremy was talking about, the local stuff does make a difference. In just this year in Tennessee, the state legislature was trying to pass a bill that would ban undocumented kids from being able to be in school. I watched the idiot who sponsored the bill literally go, well, it's about $23 million. And I know that immigrants contribute, but I don't know how much that is. But you know, it's still $23 million. So we can't let these kids be in our schools. But I do agree that they contribute something. We just don't know what. Right? And it was a joke. When this was introduced in January, the groups on the ground, the people on the ground were like, we're going to lose. we're going to lose. Over the course of 4.5, 5 months, they organized. And the coalition that was built was unbelievable. Right? It was people got fired because of stupid Doge. It was people who were just like getting their benefits slashed. It was teachers who were like, no, these are our kids. It was parents who were like, you don't take it out on the kids. It was hardcore Republicans who came out becoming and turned into, you can't do this to the kids. And we won. No one thought we would win. And we won. Yeah. Is it going to come back again? Sure. Did they retaliate by sending, ICE agents to the streets? Sure. But we won. Right? We had millions of people out on the streets this past weekend, and we can win. Right? And I think that is, look, I know it's tough on a daily basis. And we work with a lot of the immigrant rights groups around the country, and I know how hard it is. But we can win. And you can help stop this. And there's 4 things. There's the activism and education that everyone up here has talked about. There's the civic engagement work that you can keep promoting, not just with yourself, but with your community and your family and your friends and your clients. There's your own philanthropy. Doesn't take a lot of money. If everyone in the room gave $5 a month to a good group, gave $10 a month to a good group, come to our luncheon tomorrow. That's my ugly pitch for tomorrow, for the Luncheon for Immigrants list. Your own pocketbook in terms of supporting folks who support immigrants and the community. You have, I understand and I feel downtrodden every day because I watch too much news. But on the flip side, it's like, I intellectually think about this other stuff and I go, wait, you know what? Fuck that. We can win. And we can do something. So that's what Immigrants List is all about. That's why we've been helping them and working with them for the last 15 years. Good God. Thanks, Ben. Ben did that. But like you're all doing such awesome stuff. We know how hard you work. We know how much time it takes. We're not asking you to spend another 2 hours a day, but maybe 5 minutes to do that extra little bit, to mention why someone should become a citizen, why someone should become registered, why someone should be educated on a topic, why someone should understand that immigrants do make a difference. It's just 5 minutes. But every time you do it, in the same way that the other side does it, every minute of the day saying immigrants are bad, if you say, no, they're really not. And here's why. And you should know because you get impacted by them every day. You do that every day. We all do that every day. All of a sudden, people start believing. And so I hope that none of us lose hope on this because there's too much opportunity out there. There's too much. Things are bad and they're going to get probably worse. But with the worst means that we can find more people who are with us. So, yeah, that's my 2 bits.
Well, thank you, John. That was really. So basically what you've heard from the panel is you've got a lot of information, a lot of resources, and it's time for all of us to get involved and do more. And I know doing more right now, everybody's exhausted, but this is, as Ira said, really, we are in the fight of our lives here. And Immigrants List, what we're intending to do is we're going to do an education campaign on social media over the next 6 months to inform the public about contributions immigrants make. And this is really important for all of us. Every time you have a conversation and somebody's talking about the negative immigrant or immigration, we have that information. We know how important they are to the communities. We know how important they are to our neighborhoods and our friends and our family, and it's important to bring that up. We're also going to work with community organizations to oppose anti-immigration measures. And we're going to develop a medium strategy for midterm elections. And so anybody who wants to get involved to help, we're happy to have you participate with us. We're happy to have you donate if you can't participate because you're too busy. But these are all the things that we know that need to happen in order to fight this battle. Saul Alinsky, a famous community organizer, You know, he said you have power two ways. You have power with money and you have power with people. Well, we have a lot of people out there and we can get them out on the street. And we have some money and we probably know some people with some money. And we could try to work that way. The Republicans, they seem to out money us, but we can do this. And when Saul Alinsky, he had a lot of very unorthodox community organizing techniques, and he was very successful. And I think that we can do the same here.